Hello, everyone. What's up? You might be thinking, there's no city council meeting tonight. What are these jokers doing here? Well, guess what? We're not going to let the city council get in the way of us streaming and doing content. That's right. We're doing content, folks. This is the inaugural episode 0 of the Worcester Sucks Power Hour. Something that will hopefully be a second show for our Twitch audience, and it'll be a podcast. And I'm going to get to more about that later. But first, let us introduce our panel, who should seem familiar to longtime watchers of Worcester Council Theater 3000. Everyone go and introduce yourselves.
All at once.
All at once.
Hi, I'm Brian O'Donnell, and I love you all.
Wow. I'm Brendan Melican. I've been trapped in boxes with these guys for so long that I just can't get out. And I'm really good at stepping over Josh, so there you
go. No, it's perfect because my name's Josh, and I've been really excited to get in the box with these guys, so this just feels great.
Josh is like a cat. If he sits, he fits.
Meow. Yeah. Put me in there.
Put me in that box, baby. All right, so a little bit about this show. This is not replacing the Worcester Council 3000 streams. This is sort of like a second show where the council streams can be long and laborious, and we all get punished by the city council going 4 or 5 hours about absolutely nothing, trying to figure out why rats exist as a species. This is going to be short and sweet and to the point. We're going to go an hour tops, and we're going to go over some of the topics that I've been covering in my newsletter, as well as anything else Worcester related that's coming up. What we're doing here is we're basically recording a podcast episode live on Twitch. But after the fact, both the video and audio versions will be on a Patreon page that I am going to bring the Worcester's Good But Hurts podcast Patreon page back from the dead, and will serve to as a home for these episodes. And we've all been talking for a while now about how watching the city council is great and all, but we wish you had more time to just sort of riff on stuff and bring in guests and not have the guests assume that they have to crack jokes about Candy Merrill Carlson. I think that more guests would appreciate the time and space to not bring their tight five about the city council. And Josh Leifert is joining us for the first episode. Thank you, Josh. And he's doing that because me and Josh used to do something that's pretty much exactly what we're doing here. Back when we both worked at Worcester Magazine, before Gatehouse Media ruined both of our lives. And we did a show every week on Unity Radio to a real, albeit tiny, radio audience. And it was a lot of fun.
This is extra fantastic because I like that in staying true to tradition, we are once again, I am stumbling in here totally blind immediately after getting home, and you have a bullet point list of facts and figures. So I'm just here to stumble around Bill's facts.
Yeah, that's awesome. The only thing that's different about this as opposed to the Worcester Magazine show is we aren't going to Moyna's first at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Which honestly I think is a real shame.
Yeah, I think we should get in the habit of doing that before we go back our separate ways.
Which one of you lives closest to Moyna's, and should we do this in person?
Yeah. Well, hey, Moyna's opens at 8 a.m., so we could probably at 9 a.m. record in Moyna's and not be bothered by anybody besides the bartender that lives above the bar and has a phone that you call to make sure that he gets down to work at time.
That's fantastic. I haven't felt really guilty taking cash out of the ATM because someone's trying to watch golf in a while, so we do have to get back over that.
Oh my God. Yeah, but this is exciting. I think that this is going to be sort of an interesting blend of, Twitch streaming and putting out a podcast. And it's going to be a really cool way to sort of flesh out some of the topics that I've been covering in my newsletter in more of a fun, loose, conversational way. And we're going to get to some of the topics from the last newsletter. But first, we got to say that, hey, election season is happening, baby. It's
Wham,
happening.
wham, wham, wham.
Bwam, bwam, bwam. We had today was the first day to pull nomination papers for city council and school committee ahead of the election in November, and I got a list from the clerk of all the people that pulled papers today, and let's see who's on it. I'll pull it up on my old phone.
Not just any clerk, super fan clerk.
True, it's true. So first person to pull papers, Christian King for at-large council.
Whoa.
Up early this morning.
Yeah, he was right on top of it. Then Jose Rivera, our favorite truther, whose campaign is being run by Walter Bird Jr.
Surely
Our favorite liar.
Our favorite liar. Don't be trans around them.
No. You'll hear about it.
Ill-advised, yeah. Third was Donna Colorio. Unfortunately, she's running again, as always.
Back.
Yeah. Jose Rivera is going to replace Kate Toomey, it seems, not Donna Colorio,
Right.
for the token Republican on the board. Jenny Pacello, we all know and hate her, right? Jenny Pacello pulled her papers.
Yes.
And then
Rat Queen.
the Rat Queen herself. And then we have George Russell for District 3. And interestingly, there's a lot of District 4 City Council paper pullers on this list. We have Theodore Kostas, who's either Greek or Albanian. We're not
Depends
sure.
on the night.
Right.
Depends on the night. Depends on the crowd. And Maureen Schwab, right after Ted Kostas. I don't know who Maureen Schwab is. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
I do not.
That's a great
No,
question.
the name does not sound familiar to me. And then we have Tracy O'Connell Novick for school committee. Good for her. Laura Clancy for school committee. Molly McCullough. Diana Biancheria, who was bumped off last time and is looking to get back on the board.
Man.
Objectively,
Loves the abuse.
yeah.
Killing the vibe there, Bill.
Objectively, the dumbest person I've ever seen hold elected office in any municipality or government body. Like it's unbelievable. So that'll be fun.
And you're
You
saying
really
that
should've
2
just
days
leaned into
after
the-
watching 60 Minutes with Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right.
bold
That's
statements there,
ridiculous.
Bill.
Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene's so much smarter than Diana Biancheria. Jermaine Johnson for school committee running again. That's good. Then we have Joseph Rubino for
Hey.
District 1 City Council.
Do we know who this guy is? Because he followed every single one of our social media accounts and then tried to message us.
No idea. I have absolutely no idea. But we'll have to investigate.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, because his handle is Joe Does Congress, which makes it seem like he did try or will be trying to run against McGovern, but then his bio is all about running for city council. But he likes wrestling, so I'm either gonna love him or hate him.
Yeah, we'll have to learn
Will
about
he
this
be
guy.
the heel or the baby face? We'll find out soon.
Yeah,
He's
right.
almost certainly a bad person.
That's awesome. We're off to a good start on bad people here, top of the list. George Russell has a challenger, and Fianna Jatan Singh, definitely didn't pronounce that right, running for District 3 City Council. Don't know who that is. Kind of encouraging to see a lot of people who none of us seem to know on this list.
Right.
That shows that there's some enthusiasm out here for these seats. John Patrick Reed for School Committee District E. I don't know. Maria Montano for District 4 City Council, which is Sarai Rivera's seat. So there's a couple of people running for District 4. I don't know them. Joanna Hampton Dance, fan favorite,
Yeah.
at large City Council. That's great.
Yeah.
Candy Merrill Carlson is running for District 2.
Fan least
unfortunately.
favorite.
Fan favorite. Fan least favorite, Candy Merrill Carlson. Hope her campaign implodes immediately. Mady Morales is running for at-large
yeah.
City Council. That's cool.
Yeah.
Bill Coleman. Give it up for Bill Coleman. Runs for mayor every
he's
year.
Back, baby.
He's back, baby. He's back.
Love it.
And
Friend of the
then-
show.
Friend of the show. Great guy. He came on once when we did our election coverage for the state senate race and told a story that I couldn't follow at all.
No.
Had no idea what he was talking about, but he
But he had
seemed
a great
to be
tie.
having. He had a great tie, and he had a good time telling it. So good for him. Kate Toomey,
Barf.
wish you wouldn't.
I love that movie, Chud.
That's awesome. Domenica Peroni is running for at-large council. And then another District 4 challenger, Kadia Norford. Don't know who that is at all. And rounding out the list is Sue Mailman. So a lot of people pulling papers on day one. People have until May 30th to get these papers back. So May 30th is when our ballot will be more or less set. So now is the time where we'll see probably, I'll check back in on this list like once a week to see if anybody new has pulled papers, and we'll get a sense of what the landscape is like. Still feels like November's a long way away, but this is going to start heating up pretty soon. And the city council meetings are going to get dumber and dumber and dumber
Oh, so
as we
dumb.
get closer.
They get so dumb.
It's like a sociology, like fit for a sociology paper. How pandering these guys get in the months leading up to the election. It's like they just completely stop. This info is available if you email the clerk. I can make this available some way myself, but mostly you have to email the clerk, and I don't think they send them out regularly. So every time you're curious, you got to email them again. But I'll
Just
make
another excuse to reach out to Nico, you know?
Yeah. Say, hey,
Nico, you up.
WID, Nico.
UID.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it will get insanely stupid. It'll ramp up with stupidity to the beginning of the summer. Then they'll disappear for 2 months, and then in September they'll come back, and we'll all wonder like, what jackass decided to renew this series?
Yeah, right.
And it'll get even more stupid, but angry stupid for 2 months, and
Yeah.
then we vote, and nothing changes.
I want
Yeah.
to jump in with a little bit of a controversial opinion here. I, for one, am so excited for Rivera in this race because he's already throwing punches. So I think we're going to see some extra chaos this year. I think it's going to be just absolute madness right
Yeah.
out the gate.
You know what's funny about Rivera is that his social media feed is all third person. It's like Jose Antonio Rivera would love your vote. Like it's very obviously just Walter running his social pages, but he doesn't change the pronoun to like I. He just like
He hates
says
pronouns.
Well, yeah. Better to be in the
traditional
third
with the
person. Better to be in the third person than to use a pronoun. That's what I say. That's what I
Stick
say.
to the script. I love it.
So-
yeah, it's very exciting too because I agree that he's already kind of coming out swinging, like no pun intended, but he's gonna get fucking destroyed. Like
He's gonna get so owned.
He's coming after two, who is the best at social media of anybody in this, any elected official in this city, and is not afraid to speak their mind and come right back at you. It doesn't matter who you are. So
Yeah, he's gonna get ruined.
it's gonna be incredible.
Yeah,
As an outside observer, it's going to be something.
and
They're
that is
already-
a dangerous move too, because historically people don't actually go after each other for these races. Every once in a while a new person will come on and like target somebody, but it falls flat because it's such the council goes out of its way to avoid being combative amongst themselves
Right.
because they stay safe that way. I don't think
Yeah.
they're ready for what 2 can do in terms of response to that. But
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like 2 came right out of the gate a couple of weeks ago, posting a bunch of super problematic screenshots of Jose Rivera on social media, talking about medical freedom and all the bullshit you might expect from somebody like that, and was like, they were like, love to see new candidates, but this one, nope. No way.
Yeah, that was so
good.
So fucking shady. It was great.
Yeah, and then the whole kerfuffle that we covered on the show last week that Ben White unfortunately started by tweeting, where Walter Bird and Matt Wally were trying to paint 2 as irresponsible and immature.
Immature, yeah.
Yeah, for saying that city council meetings are stupid, and it's
Yeah.
like,
And then to put a bag of gummy worms, trolley gummy worms,
Trolley
on
Yeah,
their
yeah.
desk. Just
Yeah,
that
so
shit is
silly.
just, you can't touch that. That is
Yeah.
Top
such
marks.
high level
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. I think that given the way that like the entire culture around City Hall has tried to muscle these new progressives out of doing anything useful or like trying to get any of their agenda done, I think this one might be a little bit more aggressive than past elections. I think that we're going to see a little bit more sort of hostile rhetoric, shall we say, because it has not been pretty. I mean, like everyone that's been watching the council meetings with us for the past year has seen just loss after loss in the dumbest fashion for progressive ideas, and we're going to get another one of those next week with inclusionary zoning, which is going to be as stupid as the rest of them.
Right.
And it's just going to be like that until election day. But coincidence, or maybe not, news broke today that Ed Augustus is out as the chancellor of Dean College, a job he started less than a year ago. A job he started in June of last year.
So he didn't even get his degree from being the chancellor at Dean. That's a
No.
2-year school.
Yeah, he couldn't even make it 2 years. Yeah, it was confirmed in a press release from the college this afternoon, and he's leaving in the middle of the month on April 14th, and they didn't say anything about anyone like succeeding him or them looking for someone else. And it's kind of like a repeat of him leaving the city manager's job, where it's just like sort of rushed and just like, oh, he's out the door. Thank you so much, Ed Augustus, for all you did. I have no idea. The statement is pretty inscrutable. It just talks about how like Ed is important and was important for the college, and it doesn't really say anything concrete about what he actually did at all. It's very, very strange.
I'm really excited for the Shadow Realm to get a baseball team. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, let's see here. I have the statement pulled up. This is from the Board of Trustees for Dean College. Mr. Augustus' vast experience in public life and deep knowledge of Dean was of great benefit to the college during a moment of significant and historic transition. Mr. Augustus brought reassurance to our campus that Dean can and will flourish into the future built around a new vision and fresh thinking. They don't teach about run-on sentences at Dean College, I guess. Consistent throughout his relationship with Dean, Mr. Augustus shared the devotion to our students and our unique culture of inclusion and support that makes our college so meaningful to those who study and work here, comma, the Dean difference bolded. I don't know. It doesn't mean anything.
So what is the major scandal that he's trying to get away from?
Yeah, I have no idea. This seems very rushed and kind of surprising, and I don't know. Like, we never found out really why Augustus left Worcester. This doesn't say anything about why he left here. It was interesting though. This press release says that he was a board member of Dean College for several years, and I didn't know that. Was he like a
I had
board
no
member
idea.
of Dean College while he was the city manager? That kind of seems like I don't know why you would do that, but maybe we see Ed Augustus pull papers to run for mayor. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be so funny.
Oh,
You could go work for Eric.
Yeah. He'll be the assistant city manager.
Yeah, is he hot enough to be the assistant city manager? I don't know.
I don't know. Ed might have hired the boy band, but he's not in it. He's not in it. Yeah, so what's Ed going to do now? Where else is he going to work for a very short amount of time and leave under spurious conditions?
The shocking part to me is I have to assume a job like that is kind of just a sit on your ass, hang out, and collect a paycheck job. I mean, I understand publicly you've got to be at events and stuff, but all jokes aside, like, why would you leave a job making that much money doing that little? I would do this. I would do that in a heartbeat. Somebody wants me to
Terrible
be
commute.
dean, sign me up. Okay, there we
Hated
go.
the commute. That's what it was. It-
Yeah, Eric couldn't sell him an apartment in Franklin, so
Dude, that's still the wildest thing ever. They did like a sketchy real estate transaction. Damn, I forgot about that. That like blew my mind when that happened.
still blows my mind. So
Yeah.
crazy.
It's so fucking wild. Like I just refuse to accept that this was like Ed Augustus leaving Worcester was an amicable transition for him, especially given the fact that he didn't even make it a year at his new job. Like I don't really think he was leaving for this new job. You know, kind of
Something's up.
Yeah. But those sorts of things we'll never hear about. We'll never know. So we just have to speculate.
And the only way to find out about it is for us to like in-depthly investigate it, and that's just going to get us killed. So
Right,
you know.
right.
unless we want to have like a true detective show about how Bill got murdered, trying to find out what went on with Ed Augustus.
Yeah.
True crime podcast, man. There's a lot of money in that. That's
Oh my God. Doug Arbiter tweeted the funniest thing when I tweeted about Ed Augustus leaving Dean. He goes, "You need to interview every twink on that campus." But he blurted out the word twink. It was so funny. Ed is not Ed. Sorry, Doug is so funny. Dude, unreal.
In the comments, did you see this? Yenny just said that Rubino is running for D1. Did I miss that before when you said that?
Bill said
No,
that, yeah.
we talked. I just
Oh.
didn't. I don't think I said his name right. So that's the issue.
So he's running against Jenny.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now it makes sense. All the messages I'm getting from him.
He's running for Congress in D1.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
D1's a
super
launching
funny.
pad. Yeah.
That is so funny. Anyway, sorry to go back. I just needed to clear that up.
Yeah, no, that's I don't know who this guy is, but we're gonna find out.
Yeah, certainly.
You know,
Until Ed Augustus moves back here and buys an apartment from a new apartment from Eric and runs for D1 against both of them.
yeah, right. And
Plot
then
twist: he's actually going to rent a room from Jenny and run against her in the same year.
Well, Jenny's landlord, of course.
so sick.
Right.
Sublet.
Ed Augustus starts every campaign stump speech with "as a renter." It's like, dude, fucking A.
No,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't. That'll raise the AMI. I can't handle that.
Yeah,
Can't handle that.
yeah. Just nobody Worcester in the comments says he's gonna run with Red Metro Worcester's Oppo research on Jenny. That's a good point. That guy comes up with a lot of very
Yeah. interesting
research.
Yeah, Joseph Rubino, how do you feel about sucking the devil's dick in hell?
How was it last time? So that's sort of like the two big things from today, I would say. Ed Augustus is out. He might be running for mayor, and the election papers, first day. Maine South Mom, yes, George Russell has a challenger. Let me pull that name up.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize the name. Fianna Jatan-Singh. I should just get a screenshot of this list over to Travis or something. Throw it up.
Yeah, and
I don't know. I
We'll
probably
d-
could have
we'll-
done that before the show, but who cares?
that's all good. We'll dig more into these candidates in the coming weeks too. I think we'll have
Yeah.
for sure. Get ready for the next city council stream. We'll have some more info.
Yeah. Probably on Friday is when we're going to see the list that's more comprehensive of the early people. This was just the first day for pulling papers. So we're just seeing the people who are first in line. Christian King, first in line. But anyway, moving on, one of the things I really want to do with this show, and what Brendan said he was really interested in doing especially, is sort of working through the topics of the most recent Worcester Sucks newsletter post, and just sort of seeing what sort of conversation they might provoke. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to dig into, and the first one from last week that I think would be very interesting to talk about in this format is I just sort of stumbled upon, by way of doing a really stupid tweet about Mad Max, stumbled upon looking at the data on pedestrian deaths in Worcester and overall car-related deaths, and I found that of the 14 car-related deaths, like accidents, whatever, anything involving a car in Worcester, 9 of them were pedestrians. So that's like 2/3 pretty much of all of the car-related deaths in Worcester were people who were not driving or passengers in cars, but just simply existing. And I think that really speaks to the fact that Worcester is a completely miserable, dangerous city for pedestrians. And I don't know if we talk about that enough. We talk about how we want Worcester to be like a walkable city, but it seems like we're so far away from that being
Right.
a reality. I'm wondering if anybody has any sort of observations before I get into mine on just how it feels to walk around Worcester.
Well, I think too, like you said, like making it a walkable city. When we talk about that, most people think about that as like having fun stuff to go to that's walkable too, and they forget the idea of like having it be possibly like safe to do, like walk down the street, like, and that is visibly not the case if you go anywhere in Worcester.
Yeah, it's like at every crosswalk you'll see people like just running across the street because they know no one's going to stop for them,
Right.
and like drivers like honk at pedestrians and like will swerve around them and stuff, and it's just like the entire, like, I guess driving culture of our city is completely antithetical to people trying to walk around downtown.
Well, you just
And-
mentioned it, Bill. I mean, I think it does come down to it being a driving culture. It's when we were wrapping up last week, I was telling everyone I was going up to Alaska. I've got some family up in Anchorage, and I walked everywhere up there. But it's wild because it's the opposite of a walking city, right? It was built in the 70s. It was built because of oil money. So, like, a regular road is 4 lanes wide, one way. There are sidewalks, but they don't shovel them, like, because nobody uses them. They're just there because federal dollars require you to have sidewalks.
Right.
But you could actually see a lot of some of the problems that we have here in Worcester, where everything's an SUV, which are inherently like dangerous to pedestrians, right? Huge A pillars, NB pillars, so you're not going to see anyone walking around you. The only thing I wanted to throw too that I think is wild, like after getting back on a motorcycle, like one of the first things that you get used to on any, if you're riding a bike and you're being somewhat responsible, is that you're always looking for something that's unusual, right? Whether it be like oil on the road or a patch of sand or car doing something funny. Cars don't have that same kind of training. Like on a motorcycle, you're doing it because if you don't keep your head on a swivel, you die. Cars don't have that same liability, especially when it comes to pedestrians. And we live in a city now where being a pedestrian is the odd thing. It's the thing as a driver you should be looking out for. It's the unexpected thing. And nobody's doing that, keeping out for it. You combine that with like a huge shift to giant vehicles that are really only safe for the person inside of them. And a culture that has shifted so far away from pedestrians being the norm. It's just it's a recipe for disaster. It's not just us. I mean, those numbers have been going up nationally, hardcore since COVID. But even the 10 years prior to COVID, there's a lot of good national data showing a significant spike in pedestrian accidents and fatalities. But something has happened in the last 2 or 3 years in particular, where it's a nightmare scenario if you're walking around.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and it is everywhere. It's not just Worcester, but it in Worcester you are taking your life in your hands walking around the city. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, you like go like all of West Boylston Street, all of like Gold Star, like both sections there. It's like it's truly a nightmare to try and cross the road. Like the crosswalks are not like lit. They're not managed at all. If you like trying like at Shaw's like at the like the intersection there of Park Ave and Gold Star and West Boylston Street, like
Yeah.
people have to cross there, and it's like it's 5 lanes across right there, and it's just like you can't, like, it's a nightmare. It's terrifying to see it.
Right.
I walk constantly in the city with my dog.
Fucking
I'm always
brag,
cruising
geez.
around. And the number one thing that I have to defend me is if someone almost kills me in the crosswalk, is somebody in a work van calling that person a fucking moron. That's the only thing that you have to fall back on. And while I appreciate it, we need something a little more than that. It is super sketchy. I know 2 years ago, that woman was killed on Chandler Street in a hit and run midday. It's a, Chandler Street's pretty wide. She was in the crosswalk. It's like, it's really pretty frustrating. And Brendan, I know you mentioned it, but I also ride my bike quite a bit. Once again, and you're taking your life in your hands, man. It's really crazy. And until you're either walking or riding your bike, I think it's really easy for people in Facebook comments to say like, "Why are we going to do this?" And broaden this street to add a bike lane or make it more walkable. Right. But I mean, for a lot of people, that's the reality. And it's not to be a big dork about it, but it really bothers me a little bit because people tend to get a little classist. Because for me, I'm walking for enjoyment. I'm walking because me and my dog like it. But for a lot of people, that's just the way it is. You don't have a car. Maybe that's just the way your life rolled out and you're walking everywhere. And you're taking your life in your hands literally every day. And the fact that the response is usually like, keep your head on a swivel is pretty gross.
Right. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote like, it's when a pedestrian gets like hit and killed in Worcester, the way we sort of like internalize it, like in the news media and like the economy of information, is just like, oh, this is an isolated, unfortunate incident.
Right.
What could be done? But like, it's really wild that 9 pedestrian deaths in a year really should be a matter of public policy, like what is going on, that people are getting hit and killed by cars so often, and there's not much of a political will, it seems, to really think about it that way.
Well, you mentioned that too, like the way we think about it, and also the way we think about it is like being like, oh, this psycho driver, like we villainize this anonymous driver, which people need to drive better in the city. That is 100% the case, but also like, it's a structural issue that causes these accidents to happen. People drive like psychos everywhere.
Right.
And, no one drives crazier than people in fucking Boston and New York City. But you never feel like unsafe trying to make your way around either of those cities. And it never feels safe walking anywhere in Worcester.
And you know why that is? And that's a really good point, because like New York's probably the only example of like a easier to walk than drive city, like honestly, in America.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it's like there's like assumed space for pedestrians in those bigger cities. Like it's something that you have to watch out for, and there's a lot of people walking, and there's like safety in numbers, and there's safety in having a presence. Walking in Worcester, I just walking down to the corner store today, down Hamilton Street, I was like, I'm the only guy on the sidewalk here. Like people don't really walk. There's not a lot of walkers. So it's like you're almost like more vulnerable as a pedestrian in that way if you're like just kind of by yourself, because people don't think to watch out for pedestrians. And so it's like kind of like a chicken and the egg problem for pedestrians and for bikers. It's like, how do you make more people feel comfortable and not like they're going to die walking, and then like in a cultural way, but also make the infrastructure better, but also demonstrate a need for the infrastructure, because if no one walks, then like why are you going to invest crazy money in it? It's like, I don't know. It's
But to your point too, Bill, about a lack of political will. Doing what we normally do on Tuesday nights, we've watched sitting city councilors Zoom into city council meetings while driving on their phone, right? Like, and that's considered normal for an elected official to be attending a city council meeting where you might discuss something like pedestrian safety after 9 people are killed, and they're doing so on their phone, like on a video call. It's if we have 2 people get stabbed in Worcester in a given year, we'll propose banning knives, right? Like the whole cutlery business has to pack up and get out of town. And not to be dismissive of violent crime, but like then you have something that's truly fixable because it's cultural, right? Like, I know Yenny's joking when she made a mention about what New York City are you talking about, but the reality is there are rules, because there's a driving culture and there's a walking culture. And all of us have probably had the experience of like being a first-timer or a tourist in New York, and you take a step off of a curb because you think that nothing's coming, and a local like puts their hand on your chest, holds you back, and then you realize you almost get killed by a guy on a delivery bike, right? Because it's like, it's a different culture, and you figure that out. You're a walker, you're by yourself. Maybe early in the morning, there's a couple people running with you, but they're lunatics too. They're just taking their lives in their hands as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's it. Like in New York, like there's an expectation that like while people are insane and while there's so many more people there and everyone is insane that lives in that city, that shit goes down. But like there's lights at every crosswalk, and there's an expectation that there are technically rules to be followed. It's the Wild West here in town.
Yeah, you're completely just atomized and vulnerable as a pedestrian, and like almost every part of the city besides like maybe like a couple blocks of the immediate downtown in the Canal District on certain days and nights. Otherwise, it's like if you're walking, you're the aberration on a space that's just for cars. And I don't know what really happens to fix that besides more people feeling comfortable walking around. But people aren't going to feel more comfortable walking around with the bus the way that it is. Because I mean, I wrote about an interesting example. Like there was a meeting that I wanted to go to last week at the senior center about the Worcester Now Next survey, and I didn't have a car. And if I had a car, just 15 minutes across the city, just drive over. But the multiple ways I could have gotten there as a pedestrian without a car were so burdensome, confusing, and like dangerous that I just decided that it was not worth it to go. I just didn't go. It's like the bus, I straight up could not figure out the bus schedule and map in a way that I felt comfortable going to the bus station and waiting. The website for the WRTA is a fucking Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, does the schedule, there was like the last time I looked at the schedule, it didn't appear that it lined up with like other like everywhere that it's published has a different schedule, and it wasn't even clear that any of them were correct.
Yeah, it was wild. And then there was all these like advisories about like route closures and like schedule changes, and you couldn't tell if those were reflected in the PDFs you were opening about the specific routes. And I was just like, man, I got 3 hours before the meeting. If I try to take the bus there, I am not confident at all that I will get to this meeting. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And you know, it's great that the bus is free, and I think it should continue to be so. But
sure,
if we're gonna get more riders, there's a big question of people feeling like it's even possible to use the bus, which needs to be solved.
Right.
I think when we talk about like a chicken and egg scenario, it's obviously a little different than pedestrians because it's not quite the same. You're not walking to perhaps a job, but as soon as they opened up that big section of the East-West Trail that laps around the lake, it's very beautiful. I see it all the time. People started walking all the time. There's a ton of people walking it, and all that it took was something being there that doesn't suck to walk. And I'm not sure what the push was for that, or if it was just kind of funding came down and someone decided to make that happen. But as soon as it was there, it's packed. So I have to imagine if Worcester put in a little bit of money towards that sort of infrastructure, it would go a long way.
Yeah,
Totally.
for sure.
That's where I think you get into, again, the chicken and egg comment I think is applicable because, to your point, Josh, like what we tend to see a problem with in the city is when we have accidents, they tend to either be kids or elderly people. And it always comes down to being an equity issue. Your folks that are out there getting hit by cars tend to be people that it wasn't just, I'm going to leave the car at home today, right? They're walking because they're working late at night, and they're that one person out there, so they're the unforeseen thing that for a driver, not forgiving the driver, but it's an unusual thing to see a pedestrian late at night. Same thing with kids. But then on the flip side of that, we had it wasn't a fatality, but we had a kid hit getting off a school bus up here in the west side of the city a couple of years back, but it was on DOT property. And the state came in basically overnight and reconfigured an entire state highway because of it. I think that's one of the problems we have too. Like oftentimes the city council just will see as a solution, well, we need more crosswalks. But we don't have a lot of engineers as elected officials who understand that things like mid-block crosswalks are just going to get more people killed because someone leaves a red light making a left-hand turn, they're accelerating, and they're not expecting somebody to be standing in the middle of the street.
Right.
There's a lot of behavior that we have from an ordinance and an engineering perspective that is just legacy behavior from a time when there were many fewer cars on the road, and the reality of fewer pedestrians, more cars, and best practices having evolved over the decades really hasn't caught up to Well, it's the whole Worcester has a dome over it, and God isn't allowed in thing, right? It's,
Yeah, yeah.
there's outside information that just hasn't made its way through yet.
Yeah, we are staunchly committed to doing things exactly as they were done in 1980. We will not change. Hey, you know what else we're not going to change on? Giving people of color a really hard time organizing events. We are just not going to change on that. I mean, people who watched the city council meeting last week will, or actually, that was actually 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Will have remembered Jennifer Gaskin and Jeff Killebrew, I think is how you pronounce his name. Were like, hey, we need to do something about the Parks Department and how hard it is to put on an event around here, because they are just creating chaos and bilking us, and like it seems like they're trying to disincentivize us from having our events. And there was one thing that I want to talk about on that. The Telegram did a follow-up on that story like a week late, but whatever, I'm glad they did. Where
Well, they were waiting for the bus, so
yeah, right,
it took a while to.
yeah, they were waiting for the bus. But they tried to get in touch with the Parks Department or the Parks Commission, and the Parks Commission wouldn't comment. But this Killebrew guy showed the Telegram reporter some emails of an exchange that he had with somebody in the Parks Department. And Killebrew was like, hey, I think what's going on here is kind of sketchy. Like, this feels discriminatory. And the city worker in the Parks Department wrote back that they, quote, don't appreciate your accusation of discrimination. We practice the same process with everyone. Which is definitely something you say when you practice the same process with everyone.
Sounds legit.
Yeah, so I think that we saw Batista so quickly be like, yeah, I fucked up, it's my fault, I wrote the system's broken, and like sort of hop on that sword, because there is actually something sketchy going on in the Parks Department, and there might be some people there that are not too fond of something like the Worcester Caribbean Carnival going on every year. So
It's so weird to think that anybody in Worcester would be racist.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't think we've never. I mean, like Police Chief Stephen Sargent said it best when he said, "I've never seen an instance of racism in my 35 years at the Worcester Police Department."
Yeah.
And I believe him totally, 100%. There weren't like dozens of lawsuits about that, or people killed in the street or anything, while he was the police chief. But that's
No,
not
never been
going.
anything like that.
Never been anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
the comments on that article that's being referred to, I don't know which ones in particular, but they're obviously pretty grotesque, because the ones that I saw, and to be fair, it was a pretty passing glance that I gave to that, was mostly involved with, but look at all the bad things that happened at that event. And as someone that's been going to the St. Patrick's Day parade since I was a young man, definitely never been any shitty things happening there. It's always been good, clean fun. No problems at all.
For real.
no, never. No,
But that does
no.
speak a lot to the character of the city, right? I mean, I think everyone here has joked together at some point in time about what a ridiculous shit show like the St. Patrick's Day parade is. I mean, it's abhorrent, and like I've got a pretty high tolerance for like shit behavior, right? But like, that's it. That's the high watermark. Like, people in Worcester are actually really angry that people like were dancing on and around a police car at the Caribbean Festival. Like, to me, that was like maybe the high watermark for awesome happening in the city of Worcester.
Yeah.
But like, people really viewed that as like that was a shameful, disgusting thing. Like, meanwhile, like bringing your kids to Park Ave and getting completely shit-faced and losing them, like that's perfectly normal
Right.
behavior, because it's only once a year and we're celebrating, right? Like, it's Lent.
It's just fun. Lighten up.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's the same conversation that's happening right now with like the women's NCAA tournament, where like
Yes.
you had so much celebration of one athlete for acting in a specific way throughout the entire tournament, and then when an opponent did just the same things that she was doing during the whole tournament back to her, the nation melted down, and like Caitlin Clark, who was she's white and was celebrated the whole time, and then her name is escaping me right now, but the player from LSU who just did this, like literally did the same moves, did the John Cena, the Tony Yayo, John Cena, like to her face. Caitlin Clark didn't even have a problem with it. She's like, yeah, that's competition. That's what people do. Angel, thank you. Angel Reese. Yeah. Like honestly, there's been like days and days of like admonishments from like even like left leaning like political commentators. And it's like that type of thing. It just carries over into every single, it's like the blindness towards the debauchery of St. Patrick's Day because, oh, well, that's what we've always done. And what's the big deal? It's a couple fights. And meanwhile, the Caribbean like carnival, there aren't fights like even to the degree that, there are like at the St. Patrick's Day parade, but because someone stood near it, like someone stood on a police car, that's like it's the worst thing that's ever happened and it needs to be stopped, and they're using their insidious power with connections in the city to shut it down.
I mean, I think I mentioned it that night when we were covering that council meeting. The city of Worcester attempted to change the designation of the Worcester Common to a cemetery because of the memorials that are down there, specifically to keep the Latino festival from happening on the Common, right? I mean, and that happened in real time, right? Like we all watched it happen. Like the Common wasn't going to be a park anymore, which would have had the only reason they didn't do it was it would have ended up being so restrictive by turning it into a cemetery that basically nobody could ever be near it again. It's like it would have its own set of hours and whatnot. But yeah, and that wasn't like 1973 that happened. That was like Phil Palmieri ago, right? Like that was relatively recent history.
That's insane. There's some action happening in the comments here. Sort of confirming that the rumor I heard is a rumor that former Superintendent Maureen Binyenda is apparently going to be pulling papers for school committee. Talk about Irish mediocrity getting a pass. I really hope that doesn't happen, but there's a good chance that it would, because this whole engine of Worcester politics runs on spite. And Maureen Binyenda is definitely spiteful of the way that she was let go, shall we say, from the let go very softly, I might add, from the superintendent job.
Right. Yeah.
After doing like objectively racist things for years, they were just like, maybe we don't renew your contract for 1 year. And she was like, "This is unacceptable. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me."
She's the superintendent where now? In
some like rural school out in like the
and apparently they fucking love her out there. And it's like, yes,
Checks
of
out.
course. Yeah.
It was like Upton or Northbridge or something.
I think it's
Warren.
It's
Warren.
It's Warren.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah.
It's Warren.
Apparently hugely popular there, and it's like, well, yeah. I mean, it makes sense because even if people aren't like love racism, then there's no one to be racist against out there.
Right.
All her bullshit would never come up because it's a not very diverse area of the state. So
yeah, there's not going to be a coalition of Latino students being like, you suspend us like at a 10-1 rate of any other demographic in the school.
They just love her accent.
Why is that? Yeah.
I just find it so charming.
Oh my God, she's a real city girl.
We should commit right now to covering school committee meetings if she does win a seat, just to mock that accent on a weekly basis.
I would think, the hope would be that the electorate in this city has changed slightly enough that enough people that are committed to voting had her either as a principal or a superintendent and just would flat out not vote for her. In that way, maybe school committee is a stupid idea for her.
Yeah,
I
right.
love
Because
that.
that's. Go ahead.
I was going to say, adversely, she has so much name recognition. I mean, that's a scary name to toss in there. I feel like just based on being kicking around for so long, she's got a better than shitty shot, unfortunately.
Here's the thing, though. All of the teachers hate her now.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
All of the,
That's huge.
Yeah, like the teachers union fucking hates her guts.
Yeah, they're getting a
Yeah.
taste of competency.
Yeah, they're like they're freaking out.
That's a powerful
things out.
drug.
Yeah.
That's-
Can't go back.
Yeah, and teachers do be voting. So
Teachers be voting.
yeah. Yeah, Maureen Benenda should run on the platform of "I was named after a beach." See how that goes. You know that
Is she
beach?
going to run in the minority majority district?
Yeah,
That would be
right.
like that would be chef's kiss if we could.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah. Imagine that attempted at racial equity reform lands us Maureen Benenda back in the seat of power. Holy shit. That would be irony, baby. That'd be the chickens coming home to roost. But another way that the city is shitty and discriminatory, while we're on the subject, is ARPA funding. Did you guys read that story in WGBH recently about how the city is passing over a number of sort of small grassroots community organizations for COVID relief money and instead giving them to places like UMass Chan Medical School, which is, famously needs it. And in this WGBH story, they interviewed Dan Ford, who I don't know if you guys know, but he's the guy that tried to get the bridge going and got royally fucked by the city for attempting to do that. And now the bridge is evicted, and there might be condos built in that warehouse at some point. But he tried to apply for funding, to ARPA funding, to continue like sort of the mission of the bridge, like do like a work program for kids to learn how to be mechanics. And he got rejected for it. And the city doesn't exactly say why they rejected him, but Peter Dunn is in there saying that they weren't able to approve budgets for funding if the organization didn't already have a budget of the amount of money that they were asking for. So it's like,
What?
yeah, so it's like the COVID relief money is supposed to go towards like lifting up people that were disenfranchised and hurt by the pandemic. But if you weren't already like running a successful and well-funded operation with a big budget, then you were necessarily precluded from accessing that money by the city's standards of review. And that's just so backwards to me. It's like, how
It's called Rich Getting Richer, I think is the
I would say that this is a very good example of that. But it's just like the city like just being so like tone deaf and like just wonky about like getting out of like doing good things, you know? It's like you want to seem like they're just like unaware of what it is that makes the city cool, like something like the bridge, but it seems like more accurate they're just like actively hostile.
they're absolutely hostile towards it.
100%.
So-
I mean, the best case scenario, they just don't want to deal with anything that's more complicated than big company gets big money. They can deal with it. But
Yeah.
it seems almost like you said, I wish I could look at it and just assume it was ignorance, but it really feels like it's been reverse engineered to keep the money out of hands of the most interesting, positive ways to use it.
Right.
Well, if you give the money to a small grassroots organization, then you can't get a lobbying job from them afterwards. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, right.
Like psycho shit, dude.
Yeah, how are you supposed to go from the city manager's office to being like director of communications at Shannon Medical School if you don't grease the wheels beforehand?
Not that he had anything to do with money being dispersed or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
That one might have been
Yeah.
okay. And also, he tried to get rid of Plantation Street for us. So
Right.
He did give us that.
yeah.
Candy Merrill Carlson was nonplussed. Actually, wait, no, she was plussed. She was
She was
very
very plussed. Yeah.
She was
Big
very
plus.
plussed at that. Actually, she was big time plussed.
Like we talk about the like Worcester Renaissance all the time. Like they're always like talking about the Worcester Renaissance, and people always think like, oh, they just mean like fixing up Worcester. But I honestly think that to them, Worcester Renaissance means like getting rid of a lot of things that were already here. Like let's destroy the cool things
Yes.
that we don't control. And
I
get
think
a
a
new
lot of people
mall
find them
built.
scary. I mean, going back to the beginning of the conversation, I mean, I'm still having a really hard time understanding how someone like Walter and Matt Wally could agree that 2 is problematic for saying that these meetings are stupid and boring. Right? Like, they are stupid and boring. It's
Right.
what gives us something to do on Tuesday night, like the 4 of us here, right? And others. But to find that offensive, like, I always kind of had the opinion that everyone knew what they did was stupid and boring, but they had a role to play, and like their public character was, I have to pretend that this is interesting and meaningful work. And now it's like, as an adult, I'm like, oh my god, like, they weren't playing along. Like, this, we've gone generational problem where now they believe that this is important and meaningful work, and it could be. Because, like, I don't think any of us have any real idea of what's going to happen with the ARPA dollars, right? Like, it's probably going to be the minute before there's deadlines that are going to pass for spending it, that it does all get shifted over to big, well-funded organizations in the city that don't need the money. But along the way, there are so many opportunities, and not even small, like, not incredibly small dollars, but smallish chunks, 10,000 here, 15,000 there, that could really change the dynamics and direction of smaller organizations that are doing cool shit. And if there's anything we need more of in this city, it's cool shit.
Yeah, for sure. And just in that line about how you need an existing budget to prove that you can get COVID relief money, like, that's commensurate to the budget you already have. It's just like, it's like, that's just systematically right there, just disqualifying any number of small grassroots organizations that are not, well heeled to begin with. It's kind of crazy that they could look at the spirit of what this ARPA money is for and use that as an excuse. And it's just like, that's just like the sort of low grade wonkery and apathy that, like, squashes so much, good shit in Worcester all the time.
Yeah, it's like a blatant admission that, like, the best we can possibly do is put things exactly the way they were before. Like, everything was great before COVID. We just need to get back to where we were before COVID.
We were perfect. What if we use this COVID money to get FiOS? But yeah, the idea with this show is to keep it sort of short and sweet, and I didn't want to run too far over an hour with it, but I think this is a lot of fun, and I'd like to do this again. What do you guys think? I think this is neat.
I agree. I think we should do this again.
Yeah,
I have a lot going on Tuesdays.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna take this and just sort of use it as the raw audio for a podcast, and then that podcast will be out soon. And every week, that's sort of the idea with this. It's gonna be the Worcester Sucks Power Hour. It'll happen on a day other than Tuesday, probably, because we're gonna continue doing the city council coverage, and we'll just sort of convene to talk about the stuff that is in the news in Worcester, and I think it'll be a productive thing to keep going forward. Get some guests, do some interviews. It'll be fun. But before we leave here, does anybody have anything they want to put on the radar or plug or anything like that?
No. I mean, as always, follow WCT 3000 on Instagram, Wootenanny Comedy on Instagram. Sean Connolly and I do a bunch of shows around the city, and we got some fun stuff coming up. At the end of the month, we're at Wooden Bar. We're doing Hijack Comedy. It's a new comedy night, Sundays, once a month, I think we're going to do. They're going to be serving food and drinks while we do it, so that's going to be a fun one. So get your tickets for that.
Awesome. I went to the show at Heartland Barbershop on Friday. It was a lot of fun. All female lineup. They were all killer. It was really good.
It was a great show. We had a blast over there. Josh Lovell, incredible. Go get a haircut from Heartland Barber. They do an amazing job.
Right. So we will be back with the regularly scheduled city council stream on Tuesday, where we're expected to talk about inclusionary zoning, and we're going to want to punch our laptops clean through, like Josh Leifert did when his RuneScape account got deleted.
Oh, I'm so glad you remember that.
Yeah, oh yeah, I will never forget that story. That is one of the funniest
POV,
things.
you're my camera.
Yeah.
I had just bought a Santa hat. Unbelievable. I'm
Dude,
still
those are
so
like
mad about this.
so many coins or whatever they were.
Millions.
But yeah, let's keep this short and sweet where the city council isn't, and end it there. Brennan, Josh, Brian, thank you so much for doing this with me, and I think this was a successful episode 0.
Yeah.
Real pleasure.
And that's the way the news goes. How do you guys like that for a sign off?
Oh my God.